tall chimneys and think, oh look, there is a pollution, but sometimes these little tiny sources can be a major contributor, and in fact they are the one which largely sometimes may decide the air pollution or the air quality that we are breathing in. So, we need to understand these very well apart from the sources which we see in the regular pattern. Once we move before to the physical sources, let us also talk as to why we are not putting so much of stresses on the natural sources, whereas the natural sources can sometimes be in quantity can be very high. Why is this? That normally these emissions may be large, okay, but in sense of the local air quality, what people breathe, okay, these sources are not so contributory at the local level. What I mean to say is that suppose there is a volcano which is likely to erupt or which is very active, there won't be many people living in that around area. So is in the forest, that many people will not be there. And but these sources, okay, which are more man-made, they are occurring in very vicinity where we live. Okay. We live, the industries we can see, the vehicles will be all around us, the domestic cooking, well, we can't live without food, so that would be there, and so will be other small tiny little sources that would be continue to be there. So, we tend to put more emphasis on these sources rather than putting the emphasis on the natural sources. Of course, they do have significance in terms of the global sense, okay, but when we talk about local air quality, these sources are far more important than the sources what we see in the natural category. The other issue, of course, which is technological limited or engineering limited problem, because these sources there is very little we can really do to control them. I mean, there is no way that I can control a volcano and its emission. Okay. So, when the engineering solutions are not there, then it becomes extremely difficult. So is the forest fire. Okay. So, then keeping the focus on man-made, and within man-made what generally people tend to ignore is the physical sources or the non-point sources. Let us talk about the physical sources, because that is a tendency to ignore. Not even many textbook would like to cover this, because that is where we see and that is where we tend to recognize these are the sources. So, let us talk about the physical sources. What I would do is to make a little sense of the physical sources, I will start writing some of the sources of the physical emissions. Okay. So, that we get a little feeling that these physical sources are lot many, okay, sources which specifically we are talking about as physical sources, physical or non-point sources. For example, paved or unpaved road. We all see the vehicle moving on the road. Of course, there is emission from the vehicular tailpipe, but as it travels on the road, the dust which is there on the road, or the dust because the friction between the tire and the road cause lot of emission. Okay. So, that could be one example of the physical source. We also see every time the building construction activities. So, building construction, and you see the way the contractor and the people spread all the building material all over, the little wind blows and there will be dust emissions. Okay. The building, not only the construction activities, it is also the building demolition. That can cause serious air pollution. Let us also take some more example. We say the loading and unloading operations. Again a simple example, the construction activity is going on or industrial activity. Suppose somebody is loading the cement bags and you see the emissions everywhere. Okay. So, loading is just an example, but loading and unloading can be related to anything. Unloading can be related to organic solvent. Organic solvent is being transferred from one container to another, and there will be emissions of volatile organic compounds. So, we should always be thinking the loading unloading operation can also give the serious, and we will see a little later how the loading unloading can be a serious issue. Let's also look at the agriculture activity, for example. I'm just writing as they come to my mind, and in fact anyone can little bit think, be a little observant, go around and see what are the sources. Okay, and of course there is no way one could completely list down all the physical sources. It's just matter of your own observation, seeing the things, observing things, and making sense. Look, this is causing serious air pollution problem. Okay, agriculture activities. You must have seen the farmer spraying the urea, for that matter, okay, or they are plowing the field, or in fact they might be spraying the pesticide. Okay, see some of the pesticides, in fact many of them are volatile. As he's spraying the pesticide, this pesticide become volatile and they become part of the emission in the as a part of the air pollution. So these activities, okay, as I given this some example, let's write one at least so that we can remember it. Spraying of pesticides rather. Well, we can take some more example. Refuse burning, very common problem in most of our cities. There's a refuse people collect the garbage, their house, or even some of the industrial units will cover some of the garbage, and what they would do is put it outside, set it on fire, and they think this is the best way of disposal of that. It causes serious problem as far as the air pollution is concerned, and this all will fall into the category that we are trying to emphasize on is the fugitive emissions. Okay, so refuse burning, even this the little ordinary stuff we do is all the leaves that fall from the tree from the fall period or during the basant time, we'll collect them together, okay, set it on fire. Okay, leaf burning, if we can also see. See, many of the cities in our country, they don't have the proper disposal of municipal solid waste. We can also refuse, also we can refer to this as, I'll write the short form as MSW, municipal solid waste. So what they would do is that, well, they can't dispose it of. If they don't dispose it off, it's going to degrade, it's going to cause a lot of emissions in terms of bad smell and things like that. Sometimes the people find it easy to set it on fire, okay, without knowing, and that this also causes serious air pollution. We also have seen in the winter time people burning the tires, for example, to heat themselves up. So these all will come under the category of the refuse burning. Let's take some more examples. I could also say the smoking, okay, can also come into this category of the fugitive emissions. Okay, the cigarette smoking for that matter, that also would come under this category. Let's see if we can remember some more of the fugitive sources. Okay, if you go in the industrial plant, material handling, well, to some extent we cover that in the loading and unloading, but material handling can be a serious fugitive emission. Not only the material handling, even material storage. What I mean by storage is that suppose you are storing coal dust, the coal which you are going to fire it somewhere, and then the conditions are like summer condition, lots of wind, and you will see a lot of coal being emitted in the air. So even the storage can be a major issue. Okay, some more example. Let's fill up this board with examples. Material handling, storage, smoking, refuse burning, agriculture activities, loading, unloading, and things like that. We should also not forget the emissions that may come out from the industrial area, from the leakages. Leakages of what? There could be valves which may leak. There could be joints that leak and cause air pollution. There could be flanges that can cause serious problem. Okay. So I can just better off again repeat that again it's so difficult to write down all these things. It's matter of one being smart enough to observe these sources, okay, and to say, well, these are my sources. The another example I'll give you, which was very interesting, was the source emissions from lawn mowers. Okay, sometimes huge gardens, the parks, and the people are, like cutting the grass, and they use the lawn mowers which are like engine and motor driven, and then say a lot of emissions occurring from there. Okay, and this most of the time it is found the lawn mower engines were that of very bad quality, and sometimes the emission can be very large. We will a little bit get into the more of these things with a specific to an industry to give you more feeling about the industrial non-point or fugitive emissions. But let's also see as to why we are putting so much time and efforts